Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslock talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a three. And in this particular video, I want to talk about using other people's money to create new software. So if you don't know, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I've been building this reciprocity platform for a while. I'm trying to build this sort of sharing economy proofreading platform because I want to give back as much as I possibly can. And I was trying to figure out a way to make my sort of giving of what I can possibly do. There's only me, and as a professor, I make a pretty good salary, but it's not enough to actually make that much of a difference if I give what I am doing. But I know that with my own skills, I can sort of build something that can actually be a little bit bigger than me and do something that's really wonderful. So I'm trying to create this reciprocity platform. And I was thinking on my drive home after I was dropping off my kids this morning I often do hear some advice about using other people's money when you create something or build something. That's often sort of words of, maybe people around you might say, well, why don't you try to get some funding from someplace else, or why not get some sort of external financing, or maybe you can find this grant over here to help fund your particular thing that you're building, or maybe that there is at a university and being at a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation and stuff, you'd think that there was all these different funding sources that you can go to actually build something like this. But I've actively chosen not to do that. So initially, when I started doing this project, I thought there would be all this kind of stuff that you can turn to and use those external resources. But I quickly found out over the course of maybe 6 months to a year that there's lots of different problems with this, and it doesn't quite work out like you would want it to. There's all sorts of strings attached. And I think it is better, personally, from my experience now, to actually not use other people's money until it is the right time to do so. And it might never be the right time to do that, right? It might never be the right time to bring in people to external financiers or stuff in people to grow the organization, because there's some issues here. So the first one is when you use other people's monies, you are building it sort of inorganically. You're building your thing inorganically, and you're growing it very, very quickly at the beginning. And this neglects what you're really focusing on often is technical problems and sort of the technical issues. And it kind of doesn't really it doesn't focus on the organization problems that you're going to experience. So if you get this influx of a tremendous amount of money, say maybe you get $200,000 injected into your company, well, there is, and you hire a couple of people, there's inevitably going to be some pains with that, right? And if you're not really ready for that, then it's going to hurt your company, because you're going to run into a bunch of different organization problems, communication issues, for example. And you eventually have to figure out a way to pay those individuals going forward, right? So it's that financing is not free in any sort of way. And the second thing and this was probably one of the bigger things, is that when you use other people's money, is that it neglects the tremendous amount of risk that's associated with it, right? So when other people try to sort of jump on board, there is, and you work with other people, you're relying on them, and relying on other people generally, unless they're highly reliable, which most people aren't, it can be very harmful for your project. It'll eventually just stall out because nobody's pushing this thing forward. But if you're the one who's running the show and it's up to you going forward, then you're going to make sure that it is actually going to get done, right? So if it's all your responsibility, then you're going to make sure that it actually gets done going forward. And it's the rare situation in my experience, and I've worked on many different projects of various sorts and different degrees, that things kind of work together if they're not incentive. People are not incentivized in the right way. It's a rare experience where people work together and kind of get things done. It's sort of on their own accord. And it's much easier to have this sort of pecking order in terms of, maybe that's the manager, and then you hire somebody and then you're paying their wages. There's a whole theory, a huge theory in finance, and is pretty influential in my field as well, in organizational theory, about agency problems. And that's really what we're talking about with this, is that you get a tremendous amount of agency problems when you get multiple people working together, and they all have different sort of goals and objectives, and that is really risky. It tanks projects far more than it actually, in my view, than it actually hurt, or that actually accelerates the growth of any particular project. The third thing is that it's not only this risk that you started relying on people, it gets like a communication issue, or it gets an organization issues very quickly when you have multiple people that you are having to be accountable for, right? So if you get multiple investors, for example, and let's say you get 5 investors, then you have to meet with those 5 investors every month, or maybe it's every couple of weeks that you have to meet with them. And so that is time that you can devote to. So for me, I want to devote my time to research and doing my thing. If I have to meet with people on a regular basis on top of this, it's going to be all that much more strenuous. So I'd rather set this up and get some contract manufacturers that are highly reliable, and find those people to work with them and just pay them directly. And if this ever makes money, that's great. And if it doesn't, then, well, whatever, right? It's not going to be that much of a loss for me in the long run. In terms of our family, it's not going to make us go bankrupt in any sort of means. It's substantial. It hurts if something was to happen. But, at the same time, it is reducing the amount of just complexity and issues that you have to deal with if you have multiple investors that are all looking for a return fairly quickly, right? And personally, myself, I can stretch this out because I know that this, the returns are going to be a little bit longer in the future, and I can do things. It gives me a lot more flexibility, and I can do what I want to do, and navigate some of these issues that a lot of people have to deal with, right? The other thing, so the fourth thing that I think is important, is that what you should be doing in a business is not getting financing. At the end of the day, that's not what makes a business, or not what makes an organization, or not what makes things grow. What grows is when you try to figure out how to actually serve your customers and serve your audience. And once you figure out how to serve this audience base, and you serve them extremely well, then you essentially just don't have to ask for financing at all, right? So your best financiers are always going to be your customers, and figuring out how to serve them in a better way, or your clientele in a better way, is going to be the best way to actually get funding to grow your organization. And that's why we have this sort of profit motive, is because you're looking for a way to serve your customers all that much more, and they will hopefully give something in return and help you out in return, as long as you're serving them in the long run, right? And that's the key to it. And that's what, I truly believe, is that if you help enough people, that they will eventually start giving back in some way and helping you out. So, to use other people's money to grow this thing, I think it's very, very risky. And I would, if there's other people that are watching these videos and stuff like that, I would encourage you to think twice before you go and get other people's money. So getting, banking financing or whatnot, or, getting grants and stuff like that, and try to focus on growing your organization sort of one step at a time. Grow it small. You can see I'm in my house right now. I'm using my own equipment, and it's pretty rustic kind of stuff, right? Like, it's just me doing my thing, and I'm trying to help you out the most that I personally can, because I know that eventually somebody out there is going to be nice enough to, or they're going to find this useful in some sort of way, that they are willing to say, yeah, you know what, this is pretty decent stuff. Be willing to do something about it. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about, is just be careful if you're using other people's money, and really think twice. There is a lot, particularly, so when I started and was thinking about this kind of stuff, not started building this, but started my sort of life, Particularly when you're in your early 20s, it's like, oh, why don't you go do this and go do that? Um, because there is a lot of risk associated with that. And that's the key thing. And you can't grow your organization the way that you would like to grow it. And there's so much complexity involved with communicating with other people. And then lastly, you have to just serve your customers well. And if you can do that, if you can serve your customers well, then everything kind of sorts itself out, right? So, whatever that is, and you just have to keep doing that repeatedly in the long run, and hopefully something good will happen from that. If not, well, then that's life. But that's you haven't lost that much at that moment. If you use other people's money, or if you go and get other financing, you can go bankrupt very quickly, or you can lose everything extremely quickly. These things are really delicate. They're really tender. They can just kind of implode on themselves extremely fast. And I think you actually see that a lot more than any sort of thing that happens with startups or new things that start. You have to build it sort of sequentially and slowly over time, and slowly get other people involved. And once that happens, once you get other people involved, and it's going to take years, right? Then you can start sort of slowly letting things go, and then you have an organization that does its own thing on its own. And that's a great thing, but it takes a lot of time to get to that point where you can do that. So that's it. Hopefully you like this video. Give me a thumbs up if you do appreciate it. I can do more stuff like that, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.